At the birthday party, my daughter said she wanted to give me a surprise. She brought her boyfriend of 3 years over. I recognized him at a glance as the son of the mistress who ruined my marriage. In front of all the guests, my daughter and the boy knelt on the ground and begged me to do it. What this means is that not only does she want to marry the other person, but they also want to inherit my property together. At the birthday party, my daughter said she wanted to give me a surprise. She brought her boyfriend of 3 years over. I recognized him at a glance as the son of the mistress who ruined my marriage. In front of all the guests, my daughter and the boy knelt on the ground and begged me to do it. What this means is that not only does she want to marry the other person, but they also want to inherit my property together. Chi-Chi. Who is he? Zhou Qi quickly lowered his head, picked his fingers with some guilt, and muttered, I told you, my boyfriend. I took a deep breath and turned to look at the boy again. If I remember correctly, your name is Chen Zixing, right? The boy was obviously not surprised. He glanced at Zhou Qi and then nodded timidly. I sneered. Then do you still remember me? Chen Zixing lowered his head and did not answer. I think you should remember it. After all, you were in junior high school when you and your mother came to my house to make trouble. My friend came over and smiled awkwardly. How about letting them go down to rest? I said stubbornly. Staring at Zhou Qi, they came all the way back, not just to rest. Really, Zhou Qi? She buried her head lower. I understand my daughter. I have handled everything for her over the years, no matter how big or small. Therefore, she developed the little quail-like character she has now. Zhou Qi, do you know who he is? Zhou Qi then looked up at me weakly, bit his lip, and then quickly lowered his head. Is this your birthday surprise for me? My nose is a little sore, and my daughter, whom I haven't seen for 2 years, said she would come back to give me a birthday surprise. What a big surprise. This is the daughter I raised with great care and fine clothing, and this is the daughter I have been dependent on for 11 years. What do you mean by bringing him back? Do you want to sever the relationship between mother and daughter? Zhou Qi raised his face angrily. Mom, what did you say? I looked at her coldly. Zhou Qi glanced at Chen Zixing, and suddenly gained courage. He puffed up his chest as if he wanted to fight me, and said, we really love each other. Besides, those past events are in the past. You are living so well now, so why hold on to it? I took a step back and looked at the completely unfamiliar daughter in front of me. At this moment, I feel like I never knew her. How they, mother and son, ridiculed me when I collapsed. How they made a fuss when my mother was seriously ill, and made my mother angry to death. The past events are vivid in my mind, but my daughter actually said that I was holding on to the past. Zhou Qi, how old were you at that time? Zhou Qi didn't understand why I asked. 15 years old. I nodded. You should already remember things when you are 15, right? Zhou Qi had a guilty conscience after all. She turned her face away from me. Have you forgotten how I struggled to survive death? Have you forgotten how the grandmother who raised you since childhood died? Or do you think these are not important? Your conscience has been eaten by a dog. My friend stepped forward to support my shaky body. Don't be so angry yet. Listen to the child's explanation. When Zhou Qi saw this, he wanted to come over to help me, but I pushed him away. Mom, those are the grievances of your older generation and have nothing to do with me or Chen Zixing. Besides, I'm already pregnant. Snapped. I couldn't bear it anymore, so I stepped forward and slapped Zhou Qi on the face. You dare to threaten me? Do you think threatening me is useful? As soon as I finished speaking, Chen Zixing immediately came up and knelt in front of me. Auntie, it's all my fault. If you want to hit me, just hit me. Don't hit Chi-Chi. She is still pregnant with the child. I took a step back before his hand touched me. Of course it's your fault, but I can't blame you entirely. After all, with a parent like your mother, it's not surprising that you can become as virtuous as you are now. Mom, Zhou Qi covered her face and looked at me with a look full of blame. Why are you talking like this? I'm pregnant out of wedlock. Is it because you didn't educate me well? I didn't expect that she would talk to me like this. I was so angry that I almost couldn't breathe. Okay. I raised a good daughter. She is really good. I chuckled and said, you have your own path to walk, and I have my bridge to cross. In this case, let's sever the relationship between mother and daughter. Both Zhou Qi and Chen Zixing's eyes widened. Chen Zixing was even more shocked and frightened than Zhou Qi. Mom, if you don't want me, don't you even want your grandson? I smiled sarcastically. It's not that I don't want you, it's that you don't want me. I will have people stop all your cards, and I will take back your house. But for the sake of our mother and daughter, I will give you half a month to move out. After half a month, I will close the house directly. After all, Zhou Qi is my daughter and knows my temper. Once I say something, I will never change it. She had no choice but to kneel down like Chen Zixing. However, she thought she had more leverage than Chen Zixing, so even when she knelt down, she still threatened me. If you don't agree, I won't be able to get up from my knees. Kneel as long as you like. After that, I turned around and left. I didn't go home directly, but went to the villa that even Zhou Qi didn't know about. As soon as he entered the door, he fell down on the sofa and it took him a long time to recover. Everything just now seemed like a dream, a nightmare. What happened in my dream was something that I had never dared to imagine in my life, and it was also the thing I was most afraid of. My only daughter, the only person who meant anything to me in the world, betrayed me. Looking at my reflection on the TV, I finally couldn't help crying. I can't remember how long it has been since I shed tears. I covered my face, tears streaming down my fingers. At this time, the mobile phone rang. Probably from a friend's condolences and concern. I picked it up and was about to turn off the phone, but found it was a number I had never seen before. I hesitated but picked up the call, expecting it to be my daughter's call to return to my arms. What happened was counterproductive. As soon as the other party greeted me, I immediately knew who she was. Lu Yan, Chen Zixing's mother, elder sister. She actually called me sister, which really made me laugh. Lu Yan was not embarrassed when she heard my laughter and continued. Oh, do you still remember what happened back then? I continued to be silent and heard her say again, I apologize to you. Can we just let this matter go? I sneered. Apologize? How do you want to apologize? If you can pay for my mother's life, maybe I can accept your apology. She didn't say anything, but there was a low sob. After a while, she said, okay, as long as you keep the two children together, you can kill me. She said this strangely, as if I would take her seriously. Whether you die or not, it has nothing to do with me. Whether they are together or not has nothing to do with me. Before I could finish speaking, I heard a noise from the other side, and Zhou Qi's voice came over. Mom, it's really boring for you to embarrass Aunt Lu like this. My heart felt like it was being pricked by thousands of needles. I no longer feel hurt, but want to laugh. Lu Yan, you are very powerful. You can take everything away from me. Elder sister, I interrupted her. Now, you have snatched away my only daughter. I admit that you are very powerful, so I wish you a happy family. Also, don't call me in the future. I said it's any one of you. After saying that, I hung up the phone. I immediately called my assistant and asked him to freeze all Zhou Qi's cards, including membership cards for major luxury stores. The house she lives in now will be listed for sale online in 15 days. Within a month, Zhou Qi called and begged for mercy. Lu Yan was the nanny I hired to take care of Zhou Qi's grandparents. Unexpectedly, she ended up getting involved with my ex-husband. That was the first time Su Hai domestically abused me. I will never forget the proud smile on Lu Yan's lips as she stood in the dark. Zhou Qi cried and knelt in front of Su Hai, begging him not to hit me. There were only 0 and countless domestic violence times. After that, Su Hai would attack me at every turn. Such a dark life lasted for a year. It wasn't until Zhou Qi graduated from junior high school that I chose to divorce, because Su Hai had made a serious mistake. He was sentenced to leave the house. In the end, Lu Yan, whom he thought was gentle and lovely, also left this pauper. Since the divorce, I have always felt ashamed of my children. Therefore, no matter how unmotivated Zhou Qi was or how poor her studies were, I never blamed her. As long as it is not a moral issue, I will never correct it. I only have this one daughter. After my mother passed away, she became my only relative in this world. She is everything to me. She said she did not want to inherit the company, so I funded many children in impoverished mountainous areas, selected outstanding children, and trained them to be successors. She said she hoped to spend her 18th birthday with her father. Without saying a word, I took her ungrateful father from the county, booked a hotel, and bought clothes, just to make her happy, even though she kept secretly giving money to my parents-in-law who had humiliated me in every possible way. I turned a blind eye. I hope she is the happiest girl in the world, instead of being filled with hatred like me. Unfortunately, the daughter I take good care of has become a front line with the person who has hurt me so much. When I received the call from Zhou Qi, I was not surprised at all. The assistant just reported her current situation to me yesterday. Zhou Qi has been unemployed for many years after graduating from university, but she lied to me and said that she worked as a treasurer in a small company and lived a simple and fulfilling life. Chan Zixing dreams about esports all day long. This year he bought nearly 300,000 yuan in gaming equipment. Although I don't understand esports, I have never heard of anyone suddenly becoming enlightened when they were in their 20s or 70s. I stopped Zhou Qi's card, and they had no source of income at all. During this period, Zhou Qi sold more than half of his bags, clothes, and shoes. However, their quality of life has long been compromised. At such a critical time, instead of going out to find a job, I spent all day squandering money. No. There was nothing to do, so she thought of her money spinner old lady again. Knock knock knock. Come in. A beautiful girl in professional attire came through the door. Her name is Chang Ying. She is the general manager of the company and the successor I trained. Chang Ying put a beautiful acquisition plan on the table. I looked at her confident and calm demeanor and nodded with great satisfaction. Chairman, what do you think? I couldn't help but applaud her. Very good. You are very smart and work hard. Children from poor families have long been in charge, so Chang Ying is mature and steady far beyond her peers. Her cheeks turned red and she stammered. It's all you. You cultivated it well. I remember her mother died when she was born, and her father died when she was in junior high school. When I first met her, she was short and thin, but her eyes were full of light. If your mother was still here, she would be very happy to see you like this. Chang Ying's eyes were red and she nodded heavily. Dad said that my mother likes people who read the most. I was also touched by her, and my nose was a little bit acid. It would be great if Zhou Qi could be like Chang Ying. I shook my head. It was meaningless to make such an analogy. In the afternoon, I called Zhou Qi back. As soon as she picked it up, she started acting coquettishly. Mom, I miss you so much. I smiled and said, you can come back anytime. She was overjoyed, thinking that I was finally going to bow to her, and said happily, really, Mom, let's go back now. I stopped her with a smile. Wait a minute, you are my daughter. Of course you can come back. As for other people, if they dare to step into my house, I will call the police immediately and accuse them of breaking into a private house. Zhou Qi was stunned. So what do you mean? I stopped explaining to her. Zhou Qi was impatient and yelled on the other end of the phone. Mom, are you really so cruel? Are you really not afraid that I will die outside? Listen, she is not even afraid of death, but she is afraid of leaving the person who once hurt her mother. Zhou Qi, I haven't been able to understand during this time. Why do you have to be born with Chen Zi? Even if you know how deeply their mother and son have hurt me, you still have to be with him. Am I someone you can do whatever you want in your heart? Hurt? A dispensable person who can leave at any time? This question has been bothering me these days. I even thought about what is the essence of the mother-child relationship. Do I care too much about Zhou Qi, which makes her want to leave me in such an extreme way? After a moment, Zhou Qi finally said calmly, because I love him, Mom. I really love him, and I can't leave him. All of Zhou Qi's decisions are because of her supreme love. I was actually relieved when she heard her answer. Life is always about making choices. Now Zhou Qi has chosen her love. This is of course her freedom. I was forced to choose to lose this daughter. All choices must bear a corresponding price. My price is sadness and pain, either for a while or for a lifetime, but I don't care. I can handle it. For now, what Zhou Qi has to endure is poverty. She had already experienced financial hardship, so she cursed me loudly before the call was hung up. You will not have anyone to support you in your old age in the future. I will wait and see your fate. When I went to the cemetery again, I saw Su Hai again. He still held sunflowers in his hands, but only 2 bunches. When he saw me coming, his eyes were full of surprise. Why are you here today? I said with a cold face. I should be the one asking you this. Right. I'm here to see Mom. I sneered. What's your name? Mom. You deserve it. Su Hai looked at me and didn't dare to say anything to me. Of course he felt guilty. After all, he is a person who serves as a teacher and has some conscience. I know you hate me, and I want to try my best to make up for it, but you lack nothing, and I don't know what to do. His eyes were full of sincerity. I believe he has this remorseful heart, and I am glad that he has this remorseful heart. Otherwise, it would be more difficult than it is now. Su Hai handed me the sunflower in his hand. I bought it for you. I buy them every day, but I don't know when you will come, and I never thought I could give this bouquet of flowers away. My parents introduced Su Hai to me and told me that he was a very honest person. They firmly believe that Su Hai will be good to me throughout his life. I finally accepted him because of his sincerity. I took the flower from Su Hai. He was shocked, and quickly delighted. When my nose became sore, tears flowed out. Aru, don't cry. What happened? I looked at him aggrievedly and fragilely. If it weren't for Lu Yan, our family would not be separated. He seemed to have remembered the past and nodded mechanically. She came to see you again. My tears flowed out like a flood from a dam, and I burst into tears. I would rather she came to me, but she came to Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi is my life. Su Hai was startled and held my shoulders with both hands. What did she do to Chi-Chi? Su Hai said he has not remarried for years, and Chi-Chi is his only child. Chi-Chi and Lu Yan's son are together and have a child. What? I briefly told him what happened these days. Of course, there are some embellishing elements, such as describing all this as Lu Yan's revenge. After all, Lu Yan divorced for Su Hai, but Su Hai abandoned her after we separated. I don't even believe it if you say you don't hate it. This bitch. Su Hai was so angry that his hands were shaking. She actually came up with such a vicious method. Now that he knows the true face of the other party behind the hypocritical mask, he must feel very regretful and disgusted. Right. Yes. It's the same feeling I had back then. I looked up at him with tears in my eyes. Lu Yan said that as long as I agreed to Chen Zisheng and Chi-Chi's marriage, she would exchange a secret. She also said that the secret would make me stop hating her. Su Hai's eyes widened in an instant, and his lips trembled slightly. Did she say what the secret was? I shook my head. No, she only said it was related to what happened back then, so I want to ask you if you know what it was. Su Hai shook his head quickly, blinked and looked away. This woman is very cunning. She must be lying to you. I nodded. Yes. How can you believe her words? Su Hai raised his hand to wipe away my tears. Don't worry, I won't let her hurt our daughter. Then he repeated, as if secretly swearing, "It won't happen." I endured my nausea and hugged her. "Give him a look." I didn't know how far he would go for Chi-Chi until he came to me covered in blood and said that he had killed someone. "Mr. Zhou, Lu Yan met Mr. Su a month ago, and then Mr. Su remitted 100,000 yuan to Lu Yan's account." He handed me his mobile phone, which showed the remittance slip. Where did he get so much money? Over the years, he gave almost all his money to Lu Yan and her son, so when his mother became seriously ill, he had no money to treat her. He glanced at the door and continued, "He sold the house in his hometown." I thought of Chen Zixing's gaming equipment before. Go and check whether Chen Zixing owed foreign debt, especially on the internet. Otherwise, Lu, why did Yan suddenly need such a large amount of money? The previous transaction between the two was just Su Hai's monthly salary. Assistant Chi nodded and went out. As soon as he arrived at the company the next day, Assistant Chi said excitedly, "Chen Zixing does owe a lot of money from loan sharks. It is currently estimated to be more than 5 million. I was a little shocked. "He gambles." Assistant Chi nodded. "That's right. It's an informal online game. The real source of money for the boss of this game company is the loan shark he runs." Does Chi-Chi know? I probably don't know. I was confused again. What did she see in Chen Zixing? However, Chen Zixing must stay away as soon as possible. I understand that there is only one way to separate the two, which is to let Zhou Qi leave voluntarily. When a friend got divorced and wanted to get more property, she found someone to seduce her husband. I quickly called and asked for the woman's contact information, only to learn that it was a store and I didn't do private work. When I drove there, I saw a woman wearing a rose-red suspender skirt sitting inside through the glass door, eating melon seeds leisurely. Is not it cold? When I opened the door and went in, I was suffocated by the heat and the strong smell of perfume blown by the air conditioner in the room. When he saw me entering, the man just raised his eyes and asked, "Do you know the price?" I nodded and handed her a check. She walked to the checkout counter, took out an iPad, and clicked on the photo album, which was full of videos. "Choose." I chose a woman in her 30s with ordinary looks. "This is wonderful," she said casually. After making a call, the sound of high heels soon came from the second floor. That Miao Miao was still yawning when she came down from upstairs. "Go faster, big customer." She hurried down. 10 centimeters of high heels are frightening to look at. I took Miao Miao out and bought her some decent clothes and some bags. She seemed to be used to all this, letting me pilot on her like a puppet on strings. "Is this your little boyfriend?" She held up the photo of Chen Zixing that I gave her. "You shouldn't look at me this way." I shook my head. "No, he is my daughter's boyfriend." She said a long "oh." "He's been short of money recently." Then I showed her the places where Chen Zixing often went. Miao Miao chuckled. "I understand, just leave the rest to me. I don't know what method she will use, but seeing her confident look makes me feel at ease." Within a week, she called me and told me that Chen Zixing was going to take her to book a room. However, Chen Zixing said that his birthday was coming soon and he hoped that Miao Miao would give him a gift. I bought a watch and gave it to her. Not long after the watch was delivered, Miao Miao sent several photos of her and Chen Zixing in bed. You try to let his girlfriend know about this, but don't irritate her too much. She is still pregnant with the child. Miao Miao sent an okay gesture. Before she could succeed, the police came for her. They asked me about Su Hai's whereabouts. I told the truth. "I don't know. What's up with him?" The policeman sighed. "Do you know Lu Yan?" I nodded. "Lu Yan is dead. It was a homicide. The biggest suspect at present is Su Hai. I found Su Hai before the police. In fact, he didn't go anywhere else, but came to the cemetery. When I arrived, he was sitting there blankly. When I walked in, he looked up at me blankly. There was dried blood on his face and hands, and his white sweater was stained red." "Did you really kill Lu Yan?" Su Hai was stunned for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Go and surrender." Su Hai nodded again. I will go. He buried his head on his knees, his shoulders shaking, and then he sobbed softly. Aru, I really regret it. I shouldn't have treated you so much for a woman like Lu Yen. But I am free now, really free. I looked at his shaking legs. The best. Before Su Hai had time to surrender, the police siren sounded. He was quickly arrested, without any resistance during the process, and he just kept saying sorry. I waved goodbye to him, and after the police car left, I wiped the tears off my face. Back then, he and Lu Yen went to visit my mother while I was away. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Lu Yen to enter the community alone. My mother has a serious heart disease. Because of the incident between Su Hai and me, her condition was very bad at that time, but they chose this time. Isn't the reason obvious? But I didn't expect that when his mother took out the medicine bottle, it would be Su Hai who knocked the medicine away and kicked it downstairs. This led to my mother's sudden death. Lu Yen told me all this, hoping that I would no longer hate her and agree to the marriage between Zhou Qi and Chen Zixing. How could I not hate her? After knowing the truth, I just want to hate one more person. The pain Chen Zixing caused me can only be repaid with the rest of his life in prison. I walked out of the cemetery and Assistant Qi was waiting for me there. He was wearing a camel coat, standing under the pine tree, and his posture was like a pine tree. It must be him. When he saw me coming out, he hurriedly walked towards me, his eyes full of worry. Are you okay? I shook my head. When I returned to the company, the front desk told me that Zhou Qi was waiting for me in the office. Even though she lost contact, people from the company couldn't stop her. Mom, did Dad really kill his son's mother? I looked at her slightly swollen belly and supported her. Zhou Qi's eyes were severely swollen. He must have cried. Now we can only wait for news from the police. I put my arm around her shoulders and wanted to take her to the sofa to sit down, but she was shaking in pain. Chen Zixing hit you. She quickly shook her head. No, I dropped it myself. Come home. Mommy will take care of you. But she shook her head resolutely. No, Mom, I can't leave Zixing now. I have to stay with him. He is very fragile now. Only then did I realize that although this incident allowed me to take revenge, it would also make Zhou Qi become even more devoted to Chen Zixing because of her guilt. Before I spoke, Zhou Qi looked at the clock on the wall and stood up quickly. Mom, I'm leaving. I have to go back and cook. You cook. Zhou Qi nodded and looked at me proudly. Yes, I can cook a few dishes now. I'll ask the driver to take you there. She waved her hand and said, I can just take the bus. Zixing will be unhappy if he sees. Seeing her like this made me feel very sad. The apple of my eye actually lived such a life. She loves Chen Zixing so much and trusts him so much. If she knew that Chen Zixing had betrayed her and even approached her for money, would she collapse? I sat dejectedly on the chair, and the phone rang. It was the police. He said Su Hai asked to see me. After only 2 days of absence, Su Hai has aged so much. He was very excited when he saw me, and was soon pushed down by the police and sat down on a chair. Aru, please help me be the best lawyer, okay? For the sake of us as a couple. He burst into tears as he spoke, and looked really pitiful. I finally nodded. Don't worry, leave it to me. I will find a lawyer for you. Su Hai was a little unbelievable, and then cried even more sadly. I'm not a human being, Aru. When I get out, I will repay you well and treat you well. I nodded. Treat me well. When he comes out, he will probably have to be taken care of. How can he treat me well? No, I don't know if I can come out yet. I asked my friend's son to help. He just got a lawyer's license this year under the pressure of his family. But the career he most wants to pursue is not a lawyer. If you lose this lawsuit badly, you will basically lose your place in the industry, and your parents won't force you to become a lawyer. He slapped his thigh. I understand. Leave it to me. He really lived up to my expectations. With his unremitting efforts, Su Hai was sentenced to life. Although he received a few slaps from his family, he could still choose what he liked to do. I realize I've been fooled by you. I raised an eyebrow at him. Now my parents are so guilty of you that they want to give you a lifetime of free litigation. I chuckled. That's right. Your father has promised to be my company's legal consultant for free for 3 years. His parents are both. I've definitely earned my place at the top of the legal profession. Ginger is still spicy when it's old. Yes, living more is still useful. I was about to leave when Meow Meow called. Her tone was a little anxious. Chen Zixing wants a car. Can you give it to me? Don't give it yet. The last time he got the watch, he sold it within 24 hours. I thought for a moment. Take him to your place at night. Tell me your home password, and I will arrange everything. Okay. After hanging up the phone, I quickly called Assistant Chi and asked him to deliver a box of jewelry to Meow Meow's residence and arrange it in the most conspicuous place. There are a lot of them, and the styles are all very similar. You can take him there. From the moment Chen Zixing entered the villa, I watched on the surveillance camera. This residence is not Meow Meow's real home. It is her workplace, and there are pinhole cameras everywhere. His eyes were fixed on the jewelry placed randomly on the table. The moment Meow Meow opened the jewelry cabinet, his eyes widened. Late at night, he slowly stood up, carefully glanced at Meow Meow beside him, and then got out of bed. He tiptoed over to look at the jewelry, but because they were neatly arranged in the cabinet, he didn't dare to move. So, he reached out to the table, picked out a few necklaces with many diamonds and put them in his bag. He didn't know that the ones on the table were much more valuable than those in the cabinet, so he shook his head in disappointment after getting them. Shortly after leaving the villa the next day, he went to the second-hand market to sell the jewelry. He only bought $3 million necklaces worth 400,000 yuan and was still complacent. Assistant Chi walked in. Should you call the police? Write a purchase contract and make the price clear. Let Meow Meow tell you. I can't come forward. Okay. Meow Meow was indeed someone who had seen strong winds and waves, so she took the police directly to Chen Zixing's home. I asked people to keep observing Zhou Qi. She was pregnant with a child and had an impatient temper that was prone to accidents. I quickly drove over with Assistant Chi and parked downstairs. After a while, Chen Zixing was taken down by the police. His legs were already weak from fear and he was dragged away by the police. Meow Meow didn't come down, so she was probably talking to Zhou Qi. I was so anxious that my palms were sweating, but thinking that Meow Meow was there, I felt a little relieved. This shows that Zhou Qi is fine now. I was staring upstairs closely when the phone rang and it was Zhou Qi. Mom, come here. Chen Zixing's home. I sat in the car for 15 minutes before Assistant Chi and I got in. The house was a little messy, and Zhou Qi and Meow Meow were sitting face to face. Mother. When Zhou Qi saw me, he immediately ran over and hugged me in tears. Mom, Chen Zixing was taken away by the police. They said he stole something. Meow Meow immediately shouted. He stole something in the first place. You can see it on the surveillance camera. He still said that I had wronged him, which is really inexplicable. I looked at Meow Meow and asked deliberately, who are you? She chuckled. Chen Zixing stole something from my house in the middle of the night. Who do you think I am? I pretended to be shocked and exaggeratedly covered my mouth. Are you also Chen Zixing's girlfriend? She stared at us. What do you mean? I am his real girlfriend. And Chen Zixing said he wanted to marry me, so he bought me a diamond ring. She took out the ring from her bag that a man could only customize once in his life. It's a pity that I have very high standards for character. Theft is the most annoying thing. But when I came here, I saw that there is a pregnant woman at home. She pointed at Zhou Qi's belly. It's really unlucky. Met you. I gave Meow Meow a thumbs up in my heart. Her acting skills are really good. There is no trace of acting. Mom, I don't believe that my son will never betray me. I had a heart attack and walked along her back to help her relax. Then what did Chen Zixing say just now? Zhou Qi quickly lowered his head, and then seemed to think of something. He must be because his father killed Aunt Lu and he didn't know how to face me. So, that's why. I interrupted her and asked Miao Miao directly, when did you confirm your relationship? Miao Miao said, a date, which was the week before Lu Yan died. Zhou Qi's face turned gray and he looked at me desperately. Why? I sighed. Silly boy. The love you think is just a deliberate scam. Her eyes widened. What scam? What do you mean? I asked Assistant Qi to tell Zhou Qi what he found during these times. Chen Zixing approached her just to collude with his mother to take away my money. Think about it. What did he do to you after he knew that I was really determined to sever the relationship between mother and daughter? Zhou Qi's intelligence is normal at least, and he has not lost his memory. Naturally, he knows that what I said is right, but she still shook her head. It's impossible. He loves me. It's impossible. I gave up everything for him. How could he treat me like this? I wanted to say something else, but she looked at her twice. I fainted at a glance. The first thing Zhou Qi did when he woke up was to ask me to help Chen Zixing. I shook my head and refused. Ignoring the transfusion in her hand, she turned over and got out of bed. If you don't care about him, I will really disown you. I was so angry that I gasped, and Assistant Qi hurriedly stepped forward and patted my back to help me. I'm fine, Mom. Just think of it as helping Dad pay off his debt. Okay, after all, Dad killed his mom because of me. I sighed, turned on my phone and played her the recording of the conversation between Lu Yan and me. Lu Yan's voice was very clear, and Zhou Qi should be able to hear it. It was Su Hai who kicked the old man's medicine downstairs. Only I knew about it. He promised to give me stability for the rest of my life, so I agreed to take the blame. Zhou Qi screamed and squatted on the ground. I watched the infusion tube in her hand quickly draw blood, and quickly called the doctor. By the time the nurse pulled out the needle, the back of Zhou Qi's hand was already highly swollen. Do you know now? Your father killed people because they did something wrong, and let me tell you, Chen Zixing was also involved in this incident. She shook her head in panic. It's impossible. Zixing must not know. Have you forgotten that zipper pull that was left at your grandma's house? The name of Chen Zixing Middle School was written on it. All the evidence was in front of him, but Zhou Qi just didn't want to believe it. I wanted to say something else, but Assistant Qi stopped me. Let her calm down first. I had to give up. Eat something. You haven't eaten since morning. I nodded and went to dinner with him. When we came back, Zhou Qi was gone. I searched like crazy for someone, but I couldn't find him. Zhou Qi disappeared. I was extremely flustered and my mind went blank. Don't be afraid. You will find it. Assistant Qi supported me. Otherwise I would have fallen directly to the ground. The police called me the next morning when I found Zhou Qi. When I rushed to the hospital, Zhou Qi was already awake, but the baby was gone. She was staring at the ceiling and didn't even notice we came in. The policeman then explained. She ran into the police station at night and wanted to see Chen Zixing. She made a fuss and couldn't help it. She was pregnant again, so we let her see her. But when she came out, something wasn't right. She glanced at the hospital bed. Zhou Qi. As soon as I walked out of the police station, I jumped into the river. Fortunately, I was rescued. But by the time I got to the hospital, the child could no longer be saved. My vision went dark, and I fell straight down. Fortunately, I was supported by someone. It took me a long time to calm down on the chair. She stayed in the hospital for a week, during which time she remained silent. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, there was some brightness in her eyes. Chi-Chi. Before I could speak, she started crying. Mom, why? Why is this? Chen Zixing probably didn't deny any of this. I hugged her and said, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Mom, can someone help me? Zixing, he has lost a lot of weight. I let go of Zhou Qi. Are you sure you want me to help him? She nodded firmly. He was by your side when your grandma died. He watched helplessly as your grandma died. He was also there when Lu Yan instigated Su Hai to beat me. He witnessed it all but didn't feel any guilt at all. He still wanted to if he wants to get my money through you. You want me to help him? Zhou Qi's face turned pale. Mom, for the sake of me almost dying, for the sake of my lost child, please help me. Is he okay? I shook my head. Zhou Qi, I help you because I have feelings for you, but this is not a tool you use to blackmail me and make me compromise with you. Mom, why are you so heartless, ruthless? It turns out that all I have done is only worth the word ruthlessness in her eyes. I couldn't help but laugh and had no desire to explain anymore. Take good care of it. After saying that, I turned around and left. I hate you. You no longer have me as your daughter. I forced myself to leave. I saw Zhou Qi again a month later. She came to the company to see me after being discharged from the hospital. Mom, I plan to wait until I have a son. He has already admitted his mistake to me. He said he will treat me well in the future. Moreover, he said that when those things happened, he also stopped Aunt Lu, just because I'm still a child. So? I looked at the computer without looking up, interrupting her. So, do you want me to bless you? She was stunned for a moment, then said, I'm going to move back to He Zixing's home. Whether you help him or not, I will wait for him to come out. This is your freedom, but please sign this agreement. She picked it up and read. You want me to give up my property inheritance. Shouldn't you? Didn't you say that I don't have a daughter like you? Then what qualifications do you have to inherit my property? Zhou Qi's chest kept rising and falling and then sneered. You really only have money in your eyes. My heart ached with pain. Sure enough, only the people you care about can hurt you. Zhou Qi picked up the pen and signed and stamped it without hesitation. You really have to do it for a despicable person like that. I don't allow you to say that about him. Zhou Qi looked at me fiercely. You have no right to say that to him. I chuckled. Sorry, I will never talk about him again. Zhou Qi's eyes lit up. I won't talk about someone who has nothing to do with me. I will let someone notify you of the time to go to court. What? What are you going to court for? Dissolve the relationship between mother and daughter. Otherwise, when I am too old to move or get sick, you will have to support me. Zhou Qi's eyes turned red. Mom, do you really don't want me anymore? I shook my head gently. It's you who don't want me anymore. A year later, Zhou Qi and I went to court to dissolve the relationship between mother and daughter. She no longer had the obligation to support me, and her household registration was also moved out of the Zhou family. Now, she is completely free to choose who to get the certificate from. When I walked out of the court, my heart felt as heavy as a stone weighing on me. On the other hand, Zhou Qi left without looking back. Are you okay? Assistant Qi looked at me worriedly. I shook my head. Go to the company. Now, all I have in my life is work. No, your life is not just about work. Nor can it be just about work. Assistant Qi handed me a ticket. It's time for you to travel. It's time for you to have some fun. I frowned at him. I don't want to go to Xinjiang, and I don't want to travel. I don't want to go out alone, but Xinjiang is very interesting. Why are you denying it if you haven't been there? He took out another ticket from his bag. Besides, I also want to go there. Boss, you can think about it for as long as you want. You won't give me a day off. I was amused by his aggrieved expression, and finally agreed to him. However, I still have to go to the company first. Assistant Qi interrupted me. Don't worry about the company. I followed his eyes and saw Cheng-Ying standing there with 2 suitcases. Mr. Zhou, you can travel with peace of mind, and leave the company matters to me. She handed me my suitcase. I made my own decision and asked the maid to pack it for you. My eyes turned hot. Thank you all. Under their advice, Qi Yuan and I embarked on a casual trip. 4 months later, Zhou Qi stood at the door of the villa in thin clothes, with a pale and swollen face. As soon as I got out of the car, she ran towards me, knelt on the ground and cried loudly, "Mom, Zixing was sentenced to 10 years. I beg you, please, please help him. 10 years is too long." Now that I see her again, I feel even more relieved. We are mother and son, but we are also two separate individuals. We should each be responsible for our own lives, not each other's. Chen Zixing has a bad character, he said. If he is morally corrupt, you still have the freedom to choose to be with him, but he has committed a crime now, and the law will not forgive him. Don't say that we have dissolved the relationship between mother and daughter. Even if we have not, I will not help him. Zhou Qi, let me give you one last piece of advice. Before you are a lover, you must first be a human being. What qualifications do you think you have above the law, with your unhealthy views on love? Mom, how could you be so? To me, we are mother and daughter after all. Zhou Qi stared at me relentlessly. Are you really going to be so cold-blooded? I sighed, even though I knew what was going to happen next. She might not be able to hear what I said, but I decided to tell her anyway. If you were just a love brain, I might forgive you, but now, in my eyes, there is no difference between you and Chen Zixing. Your cheap morality also made me understand one thing. The day after tomorrow may not change a person's nature. You have not become bad just because you have not encountered a choice. Your humanity is vulnerable. I always thought that it was my doting that harmed you, but now I don't think so anymore. You are just like your father, deep down a bad person, but you have deceived me before. Zhou Qi, I don't owe you anything. You are an adult. You need to be responsible or pay the price for every choice you make. I hope you will never show up again in front of me, because I will not pity you, let alone forgive you. I will only feel that you deserve it. In the future, all you will get from me is cold blood. After saying that, I asked the security guard to drive Zhou Qi away. I won't leave. You can't do this to me. Why not? You have treated yourself like a beast, so don't blame others for treating you like a beast. I said to the security guard, drive her away, don't allow her to step foot here again, otherwise, call the police directly. Finally, she was dragged out like a madman. 2 years later, Zhou Qi could not bear the burden of life and eventually embarked on the same path as Chen Zixing, and was sentenced to 3 years for theft. After I heard the news, I didn't feel any emotion. She desperately tried to contact me and asked me to help her. She said she was wrong and was willing to give up love. This is her choice. How ridiculous. Faced with her confession, I just asked her to tell her that I had not taught her the truth and hoped that the law could teach her. People cannot have no bottom line. No one can trample on other people's bottom lines, even the bottom line of the law. Life is a short relationship. We, mother and daughter, have gone through a journey together, and now it's time to go our separate ways. And the new chapter of my life has just begun. Assistant Qi proposed to me on a sunny day. That day, the sun was very warm, so I smiled and agreed. I choose to bid farewell to the past and embrace happiness again.